I'll kick us off with the first question. Mary, tell us about yourself and why you're running for the Board of Education.
Okay. Well, my name is Mary Parker. I have 4 daughters and 6 granddaughters, 1 grandson. 2 of my daughters are school teachers in Jefferson County, and 4 of my granddaughters either have graduated from Jeffco schools or are currently attending Jeffco schools, so I have a lot of interest in what's going on there. Professionally, I was a systems engineer for Hewlett-Packard for 20 years, and while I was there, I wrote and taught customer training courses, including decision-making and problem-solving. Currently, my husband and I own a human resources consulting company, and we specialize in compensation and compliance. Additionally, I am a certified parent educator, and I taught parenting classes for 20 years. And for the last 14 years, I've been a court-appointed special advocate, or CASA, working with neglected and abused children. In my CASA work, I worked with truant kids. I had 2 sisters who hadn't gone to school in quite a while, and I actually saw them get handcuffed and taken through the same doors that they take convicted criminals through. I saw the school to prison pipeline right there in front of my face. From my CASA training, I also learned that the #1 predictor of whether or not someone will graduate from high school is the number of unexcused absences they have in 3rd grade. We have to catch these kids earlier. And the last thing I want to say is my CASA experience also included two siblings who were disrupted in their placements so frequently that they went to 3 different schools in the first 6 weeks of a school year. Not only were they traumatized in their placements, but the schools had to be ready to accept new students with no notice, and not only provide a seat in a classroom, but they also had to provide a lot of support services for these traumatized kids. So I know how important our public schools are. I am excited to run for office right now because I think we are in a time of great challenges and great opportunities as we come out of the COVID crisis.
Question 2, share your understanding of the issues surrounding the Jeffco Public Schools budget.
I think the issues depend on where you're coming from, and there are some people who just point to how big the budget is, $1.4 billion, and oh my gosh, we need transparency, and where's this money going? We need to focus on it. And there's the other side that says, okay, our state doesn't fund education enough at all. And we know what the national statistics show, that our per pupil spending is $3,000 less than the national average. And we know Tabor is really constricting the Colorado State Legislature and what they can put into education. So that part of it really depends on which side of the aisle, so to speak, you're looking at. I personally went to attend the Citizens Budget Academy in 2014, and it was like seeing information from a fire hose. I think most of the community does not want that level of information. I like coming up through the schools. We have the school accountability committees. That's where the parents really want to know, why don't we have an assistant principal, or why doesn't my school have this service when another school does have it? So I think they need to understand where decisions are being made. So better communications with the community, and simpler ones. They don't really want to know the high level, so many $1 million are coming from this funnel and going out those 3 places. So that's what I think about.
I have question number 3 for you. How will you balance the competing interests of employee compensation versus student and school needs?
Well, since we got the questions in advance, which I really appreciate, I looked at this and looked at it, and I'm going to tell you, from my perspective, those are not competing interests. I just don't buy it. I have the 2 daughters who are teachers, and sure, they'd like to make more money, but they would also like their schools to have more resources so they don't have to go out and buy them themselves. They would like to have the schools have a para in every class, to have more the social worker, the nurse, the whatever be there. So the compensation part for teachers and school staff is not simply salary. It's also their work environment and how they can improve that. And then, of course, everything that we can do for teachers and for schools is ultimately going to go to the students. So that's just my feeling, that it's not a conflict.
Question 4 for you. Describe the impact of the pandemic on Jeffco Public Schools and what you might do to ensure student learning, safety, and health.
I think the impact was unbelievable. It was just one of those things, came out of the blue. Of course, we weren't at all prepared for it. And the decision making that had to go on day to day was just mind-boggling. First of all, do we keep the kids in school, or do we close all the schools, take all the kids home, leave them home? Well, if you do that, how do you get them educated? So then we had to figure out, how do you do virtual education? And the teachers need to learn a lot of those applications. I don't think they use Zoom, WebEx, I'm not sure what they were using. But anyway, all that technology. And then I had the opportunity to help my 9-year-old grandson do second grade work on a computer. So then you have to figure out, what's the attention span of a 9-year-old boy? Not very long. You have to figure out, how much can you have screen time, and then you give them something to do on their own independently. And then that impact went on way past just the teachers and the students, but the parents, the working parents. How did they handle that? How could we make sure that there was some adult in the home to help them? My one daughter, who taught second grade remotely, she had a first grader and a third grader also. So she had to teach second grade while she's helping 2 children learn first and third grade, and I sort of said, well, just teach them all second grade, So it was really, really a challenge, but I think we learned a lot from it, and I'm hoping we can bring that in forward as we use those technologies without having to be so disrupted. And I do want to follow the health guidelines of the Jefferson County Public Health Services to keep our kids in school safely. We need to stop the spread of COVID. That's the only way we're going to get back to normal.
What are the major issues confronting our district regarding student achievement, and what would you do to improve them?
I think, unfortunately, when we say the word student achievement, everybody's mind goes immediately to test scores. That's it, the only place. And that's just not the appropriate place to look at. What we really want to know is what happens after the kids graduate. Are they successful? Did they go into college and get a degree? Great. Or did they find a career and do well and be able to afford all the things they wanted in life to be successful? So unfortunately, we don't have good data on that. But getting back to the test scores, when I look at them, I'm the type of person that goes down to the bottom. I want to know, okay, what happened? Like, I'm going to go take that test. You can see some samples online. You can practice it. I'm going to ask teachers, do you really feel, in fact, I did ask my daughter who taught third grade, do you really feel that percentage of your students are not proficient in reading? And she said, no, not at all. And she said the first time they introduced these tests, they were computerized, and the students didn't know how to use the computer. And they spent most of their timed test figuring out, how do I scroll back up to that paragraph that you're asking me a question on now? Because on paper and pencil, it was easy for them. So obviously they're not going to do well on it. I'm hoping the COVID experience with technology will help in that respect. And also testing, if it's not to the benefit or the evaluation of that individual student, but impacts the teachers and the schools, I'm not so sure how much the students take it seriously and how much they're giving it their all. So anyway, I do think that we can help analyze test scores and figure out what better measurements we could have for student achievement.
As a member of the school board, why should you be chosen to lead Jeffco Public Schools, and what will you do to work collaboratively with all constituents for the purpose of improving the learning experience for all students?
I feel that my experience, especially the business that I own with my husband in compensation, specializing in compensation, will help me help the school district in figuring out the best ways to compensate adequately our staff. We need to attract and retain them, and I think everyone in this room knows already that we have a terrible shortage of school bus drivers. In fact, my daughter in Evergreen just told me her school bus has been suspended. Okay, so that route was suspended. I remember being shocked when we were charging parents for school buses. That didn't happen when my kids were going to school. So anyway, it seems like we're going, you know, down the wrong slope there. And we have a terrible shortage of substitute teachers as well. So we could do a lot of innovative things around those areas, I know, especially about substitute teachers and how we could work maybe to assign them to certain schools or be proactive and have some of them on call. There are a lot of things that we can do to help that in that area. Also, my CASA experience really gave me a good window into what it's like to be a child from an unstable home where parents are either unwilling or unable to advocate for their kids. And finally, I want to say that I think collaboration is in my DNA. It is the way I've done everything in life. Whatever the challenge is, like I was president of our HOA, and we actually had a civil war going there, and we ended up splitting. We actually split the north section from the south section. But I know that anything that I take on, I want to see everybody's perspective. I've made it that's my goal, and it's not only because it's more successful if you bring everybody in, but I'm interested. I want to understand opinions and perspectives that aren't my own. So that's the way I've lived my life.